Remember when the Panzer IVs were moved down in battle rating? What's up with that? No, really, why did that happen? Isn't this thing like really good? It kills everything. And yeah, no, that's it. That's all this thing has going for it. The Panzer IV, it kills stuff and then it dies. But what makes it so weak? What makes it so strong? Where did the Panzer IV come from, and what's the best way to use this thing? Before World War II, German armored warfare theorist Heinz Guderian came up with an idea for a tank that would support the Panzer III light tanks. This new tank would provide support by destroying enemy anti-tank guns and fortifications. In January of 1934, the German army drafted specifications for a new medium tank and contracted several manufacturing companies for the design. The new Panzer IV was disguised as a tractor under the name Begleitwagen, because Germany wasn't allowed to produce tanks at that time due to restrictions from the Treaty of Versailles. Mann, Krupp, and Rheinmetall Borsig all developed prototypes, with Krupp's design being chosen for further development. The first mass-produced Panzer IV was the Panzer IV Variant A. The Variant A had a short 75mm cannon that was designed to fire high explosive shells similar to a howitzer, but with better velocity. The following Panzer IVs were built with this 75mm cannon up until Variant F2. German tanks were having a difficult time destroying Soviet T-34 and KB-1 tanks, so they designed the new Panzer IVs to have a higher velocity anti-tank cannon. Rheinmetall's 75mm anti-tank gun was modified by Krupp to fit into the Panzer IV turret. The Panzer IV Variant F was originally equipped with the short 75mm cannon, and when the armament was changed, the tanks with the newer cannon were named Panzer IV F2. These newly modified Panzer IV F2s were quickly renamed to the Panzer IV Variant G. The G variant was given an extra 30mm of armor on the front plate, and the extra armor was so effective that the next variants were refitted with a single 80mm plate of armor instead of a 50mm and a 30mm plate. The next model, the Panzer IV Variant H, was given the upgraded cannon, the single 80mm of front plate armor, Zimmerit paste to counter magnetic mines, and skirt armor on the turret and the sides. In order to make up for heavy losses in the war, the next Panzer IV, Variant J, removed many basic components to speed up production as much as possible. The electric motor to power the turret was removed, forcing tank crews to use a hand crank. Vision ports were removed, Zimmerit paste was no longer used, engine housings were simplified, and the Variant J was all around considered a downgrade from the Variant H. The Panzer IV chassis was also used as a base for many other German tank designs. The Jagdpanzer IV and the Sturmgeschütz IV were casemate tank destroyers built on the Panzer IV chassis. These tank destroyers were cheaper to produce, but could not traverse their turret. The Panzer Befehlswagen? What? A command tank of the Panzer IV Variant J was built with more radios, antennas, transformers, junction boxes, and an auxiliary electrical generator to better communicate with other tanks on the battlefield. The Sturmpanzer IV was a casemate howitzer with a 150mm infantry support self-propelled gun. Other artillery cannons put on the Panzer IV chassis were the Grasshopper and the Dickermack. Several self-propelled anti-aircraft vehicles were also built on the Panzer IV chassis. The Flak Panzer IV moving van, the Wirbelwind, the Ostwind, and the Kugelblitz. Panzer IV tanks were the second most produced German tank during World War II. Thousands were built and were seen all around the world on nearly every front. With veteran crews and battle-proven war machines, armored divisions of Panzer IVs were a threat to take seriously. Even today, the Panzer IV still inspires fear in the hearts of all those who are forced to come against it. The Panzer IVs are equipped with a KWK-40, L-43, or L-48 cannon. These are the medium-sized German 75s. Panzer IV has access to 5 different types of ammunition: APC-BC, Heat, APCR, HE, and a smoke shell. The APC-BC has a 137mm of pen on the earlier model due to a slightly lower velocity on the cannon. The newer model has 140mm of pen, which is only really a small improvement. The Heat shell has 80mm of pen and 513 grams of explosive mass. The APCR has 163mm of pen and just 4 kilograms of mass. Again, the higher velocity on the newer models gives the APCR 166mm of pen. The high explosive shell has just 600 grams of explosive mass. The smoke shell has a 13mm smokescreen radius and lasts for 20 seconds. The turret traverse is electrically powered at 13.2, 13, 13.2, and 4.8 degrees per second. The traverse can be upgraded with the horizontal drive modification, crew skills, and qualifications. The reload times are pretty standard at 6.2 seconds on all variants. That's with the high level crew and expert qualifications. The upper front plate on the Panzer IVs have 50mm of armor sloped at nothing. It's just 90 degrees front on, the least amount of protection possible. The G variant adds another 30mm of armor. The H and J models have just a single 80mm plate of armor instead of 2 plates. The front plate has 20mm of armor sloped at about 72 degrees. The lower front plates have 50mm of armor on the F2 and G variants. The H and J variants have 80mm of armor on the lower front plate. The sides have 30mm of armor on all variants. The turret face has 50mm of armor with another 50mm of armor on the mantlet. The armor all around the turret is 30mm. The H variant has 5mm of side skirt armor and 8mm of turret skirt armor. The J variant also has 8mm of skirt armor around the turret. The skirt armor is supposed to provide spaced armor protection against heat rounds, making them ineffective by fusing the shell before it hits the more important armor. In War Thunder, the actual benefits of this armor is questionable, but it definitely looks cool though. The Panzer IVs also have extra track armor on the front plates, and the H and J models have track armor on the turret face. These tracks provide another 20mm of armor, but seem to be there just to confuse the enemy instead of actually providing any real protection. The variant F2 has a smoke system that fires a single smoke launcher up to 6 times. The variant G has 6 smoke grenade launchers. The other Panzer IV variants don't have any smoke deployment systems. The Panzer IVs have 300 horsepower at 3,000 RPMs. The Panzer IV F2 weighs 22.6 tons, the G weighs 23.6 tons, the H weighs 26.4 tons, and the J weighs 25.4 tons. The F2 model has a top speed of 43 km per hour, the G has a top speed of 40 km per hour, and the H and J models both have a top speed of 39 km per hour. In the test drive, the Panzer IVs were able to get up to 35 km per hour in 17, 22, and 19 seconds, respectively. The Panzer IV reverses very slowly at only 8 km per hour. The Panzer IVs can also unlock an extra upgrade to the tracks, making them wider. This helps the tank to traverse the hull faster and adds extra strength to the track module. The Panzer IV is a classic World War II medium tank design. They work great everywhere, and they have very few downsides. At least, that was the idea. The Panzer IV has good firepower, decent mobility, and terrible armor. That's probably why it was moved down in battle rating. I mean, the armor is almost completely useless. Sure, some people might try to explain to you that, hey, the extra plates of armor and the add-on tracks give the Panzer IVs more protection. Technically, yes. Going from an effective thickness of 65mm to 95mm makes a huge difference, I'm sure. Still doesn't change the fact that literally everything can kill the Panzer IV. If, for some reason, you can't shoot the hull, the giant turret face is right there with only 60mm of effective thickness. The right side has the gunner, by the way. Okay, enough about the horrible armor. The gun is pretty great, at least that's what I thought. I was so ready for that epic German playstyle of just point and click. But that's not completely true of the Panzer IV playstyle. The Shermans, unfortunately, can't be shot just anywhere. You have to aim for the turret. You also have to aim for weak spots on the KB1, and any angling on the T-34 stops front plate penning. You actually have to focus and aim when you play the Panzer IV, if not just a little bit. You really can't get hit by anything either. You have to shoot first because you're very likely to do damage, and you're more than likely to be destroyed if you're the one who gets shot first. The suspension isn't good enough to reliably shoot on the move, so sitting still in a good spot is your best bet. The Panzer IV has nothing exceptional going for it. At 3.7, the Sherman is a much better tank. The balance here with the Panzer IV is a combination of vehicle stats and player stats. We just went over all the vehicle stats, so you already know what's up with that, but the player stats are more interesting to talk about. If you think about it, player stats are really just how well this vehicle performs in War Thunder. The Panzer IV is so much better than any other tanks at 3.7 in a hold-down sniping position from the other side of the map, but in War Thunder, that situation is not always possible, or the most effective. If you want to get the most kills, sitting on the far edge of the map is not the best way to go. Firing on the move move, flanking around the entire team, and overall just holding W are some of the best ways to play War Thunder. But I mean, you can still do all that stuff in the Panzer IV if you wanted to. You would just end up with varying degrees of success. Thanks for watching, and as always, bye bye.